Hello, welcome back to Hazel Jane Tarot. And today we're talking about my July favourites. Now we are a little bit into August as I'm filming this, so hopefully I'll be able to get it uploaded soon. But the month of July has been really a great month. It has felt like a very long month, and it has been summer and the weather has been really good here in Northern Ireland, so that has really helped. And just as I start to talk to you, I'm going to show you some of the cards from my one new tarot deck that I got this month, which is the Tarot of the Mystical Moments by Catherine Weltstein. Now this is a deck that's a little bit hard to get in Northern Ireland at the moment, in the UK. For some reason US Games distribution has not been good, and it's been really hard to get. It's not available on sort of the, your usual online outlets. And I actually was very kindly given this copy by my friend Kenneth over at Common Hawthorne, who had got the deck and wasn't really seeing it as being a deck he was going to work with long term himself. And so he passed his copy on to me. So I'm very, very grateful to Kenneth. And so this beautiful deck is one that I've been using for daily draws. And I mean, the art is so lovely. I'd been following the creation of this on Instagram right from I got my copy of the Oracle of the Mystical Moments, which was a birthday gift a couple of years ago, as I really love this artist's work. And I had been looking forward to the release date, and then I found I wasn't able to get a copy. So it's been lovely to finally get it. I wouldn't say I'm confident with this deck yet as a reading deck. I've been pulling it for daily draws and just enjoying looking at it as much as anything else. So it's one that I'm going to be working with more into the future. And I haven't read the little guidebook yet, but I think if you know the tarot cards or basic meanings, the interpretations here are quite intuitive and lovely. Anyway, so the month of July has been very much a month of experiences, which is harder to share with you because, I'm, as you know, or if you've seen my channel before, I don't really share, photographs or, vlogs and things like that. So I'll just tell you a little bit. The month of July, I haven't been working, and that has meant, with the weather being so good, I've been able to have just nice days out with my daughter and my partner. This month has found me on little kiddie train rides twice. My daughter has been on 2 carousels. We've went to the beach. I swam in the sea, which was just wonderful because I don't think I'd swum in the sea for about 2 years. It was in the Irish Sea. It's very cold, just on the northeast coast of Ireland here. But it was bracing. It was lovely. It was nice to get back in the sea again. And I'd just, been meeting up with family, cousins that I hadn't seen in a long time, seeing their children and how they've grown, meeting up with friends. Look at that. Isn't that fabulous? And we had a little family holiday to Westport in County Mayo and had some lovely days out there. And so it's just been really nice. It's been really nice to be off for the whole month, and I've relaxed a lot. So I haven't done much reading. I haven't done much journaling. My tarot readings have been quite cursory, card of the day without any journaling about them. Actually, the first proper reading I did through the month of July was actually on the 1st of August. I did a Lunasa reading. That was the spread from Emily's Tarot and Magic, which I shared on my Instagram stories. I used Emily's spread on Lunasa to do a little reading, but I hadn't actually done a full journaled tarot reading. Apart from, I have been continuing to study with the book Tarot Interactions, which I showed last month with a couple of friends that we meet on Zoom every so often, and we're talking about some chapters from that book. So I did continue to work on studying from that book. Just we're moving through it very slowly, no pressure. And I was using the Wheel of the Year Tarot, which I've shared previously, for that. So that has been sort of the most intensive tarot reading I've been doing. And this is one of my only new tarot deck this month. So in fact, I found this month my energy has been a little bit scattered. I've been focusing on experiences, I guess, and also because I've been dipping in and out of a lot of different things. So I've been reading a lot of different books. And at one point this month, I had 11 books in my currently reading tab on my Goodreads, which is where I sort of keep track of books until I'm finished reading them. And then I will put them into like a physical reading journal that I have, or like a reading log. So I'm cheating slightly in the books that I'm sharing with you just now, because I finished both of these books, I finished all of these books just into the start of August. But I was reading them through the month of July. So the first book I did share with you last month as well is 32 Words for Field by Mancan Magan. And this is a fantastic book for anybody who's interested in Irish culture, because it explores not just words for field, words for all sorts of things in the Irish language that are being lost out of the language. So they're predominantly words to do with rural life. And those types of words are probably fallen out of use in many languages. But the way the writer here is able to relate things like belief in the fairies and, sort of a lot of the old superstitions and religious beliefs and sort of old ways of Ireland, and weave that into the sort of story that he's telling about the language. It is just fascinating. This is a book that I definitely will reread, and I'm going to be passing it on to one of my friends who is learning Irish with me, and my mum is waiting to read it as well. So this is very, very highly recommended if you're interested in Irish culture. You don't have to be interested in Irish language per se, because the words are just like a way into exploring Irish culture and history. So yes, very much recommend this book, 32 Words for Field. On a totally different note, I just finished this today. So again, I started reading this and was reading it in July, but just finished it into August. And this I just picked up. Sorry, for anybody who's listening without watching, the title of the book is Time Out, and the writer is Emma Murray, and it's a fiction book about a woman with a young child. So her daughter is 4, and they live in London, and she sort of writes about the competitive sort of local mums, and feeling like everything has to be perfect. And she goes to Ireland for, so she's Irish and has been living in London for 20 years. And she goes back to Ireland for a week-long kind of break. And it's kind of in a similar vein to a book series I've mentioned here before, which is the Why Mummy series. So Why Mummy Drinks, Why Mummy Swears. Those books are more farcical and more kind of high humor, like really over the top, and I find that series very funny. This Emma Murray's book here, Time Out, is not as laugh out loud funny, but it's more real, and I found sometimes the stories and the things that were mentioned in this really struck a chord, actually, as just sort of like the reality of being a mum to a young child, and some of the things that that can pass your mind. And the focus of this book is very much about having other mum friends and the support of other women, when you're in the trenches, as it were, with a young child. So I did really enjoy this, actually, and I just picked this up in like a bargain books shop. It was only a couple of pounds, and normally with books like this I would just sort of pass it on to the charity shop straight away. But I think I'm going to hang on to this one, actually, and see if one of my mum friends wants to borrow it and read it. And another book that I have really been enjoying this month is this book of poetry called To Star the Dark by Doreen Negrifa. Now, I just in the middle of July had a sort of an impulse that I wanted to read some poetry. I would have a number of years in the past attended a literature festival here in Northern Ireland that hasn't been on for the last 2 years for obvious COVID reasons, but I haven't been able to attend it since having my child anyway. But at that festival, I would have tended to, see live poetry readings of new and up and coming writers, and I would have bought volumes of poetry after the readings and so on. And that's not something I've been exposed to recently in sort of new work. So basically what I did was I went into my local Waterstones, which is a book chain here in the UK. And I just went to the poetry section and this was on display and I bought it. That was how much thought went into the purchase. However, it has worked out to be a very apt book for me for what I've been kind of focusing on and studying recently, because it is very much, she's exploring a lot of themes to do with Irish heritage, which is something that has been, I mean, she's an Irish writer, obviously, but that's something obviously I've been focusing on in my own personal journey and in deck buying and reading and studying this year. And so I wanted to share with you today one of the poems from this book. So this book is published by Daedalus Press. And the poem I wanted to share with you is called Two Daydreams. And it explores the idea of a girl doing an Irish history exam in a school in Ireland. And it links back to then sort of an ancestral memory or an imagining of an ancestor who survived the Irish famine. And so I'll not explain it any more than that. You can take what you will from it. Two daydreams. In an exam hall, a girl of 15 sighs, then writes, "By 1850 a million were dead and a million had fled." The pencil pauses. She gnaws a nail while far away another girl wakes. Daydreamt. Her mother calling her for a luthog baked in embers, and she can almost taste it, dipped in egg and turned in butter, can almost hear a hen chuckle or the gurgle of her baby brother. But home dies with her opening eyes as dark dies in daylight, and in dying it conjures her hands still alive, the lunulae dark where she tried and failed to put the last face away, too weak to weep. She tugs a rough blanket over her head and tries to go into dream again. A dash draws her back, perhaps, another mouse too fast to catch, but again that sound until her fingers fumble out, and there in the straw by her leg is one small egg. Tears then, as a cluster of silver cells flicker within, tiny particles that will bring her daughters and granddaughters from this egg in her fist. One by one we will all come, until another girl of 15 sits in the distance, lost in a daydream. So when I first read that poem, I cried, and that connection that it explores with ancestors who, and the things that they survived, just was really powerfully written. And there are other poems in this book that are also really powerful. She talks about an experience of childbirth and of having an ill child in ICU, and the experience of watching over an infant who's in intensive care. And there are other poems about finding fossils or visiting places associated with things from Irish history and so on. It's not a cheerful book, maybe as that reveals, but I've been dipping in and out of this. I haven't read every single poem yet, but I'm very nearly finished it. But it's one that's going to just stay by my bed to dip in and out of, because the words are very beautiful, and I'm delighted to have discovered this new poet, Doran Negrifa, who I had never heard of before until I stumbled across this. So those are some of my favourite books. I've still got like another 9 things on my Goodreads list, but anyway. So Oracle decks, I did I got 2 new Oracle decks this month. And the first one, I must say, I was very excited by, because this copy of The Painted Runes by Sophie McKay Knight was sent to me for review by the artist. And that is the very first time I've been sent a deck for review, which was really, super. It was very exciting for me to be approached in that way to review a deck. And it was a nice development of my relationship with this artist as well, because as you will have maybe known if you've been watching my channel for a while, I have a copy of the Painted Tarot that my partner bought for me as my birthday gift that I'd requested last August as my birthday present from him. And I also had purchased like a large art print of the Three of Wands from that deck, which I purchased I purchased from the artist, which I have framed. And so, you know, she's a creator that I had been really enjoying and investing in her work before now. So to be approached to do a review of the painted runes was just really exciting, and I was delighted. So I've already filmed and posted a walkthrough of this deck. Certainly being sent a deck for review did change my feelings about the process just a little bit. It didn't change in terms of posting a walkthrough or posting a review, I didn't feel like any compulsion to not share my honest opinion. Knowing I already loved Sophie Mackay Knight's work, that made it, you know, fairly straightforward to know I was going to be able to honestly share my thoughts about the deck, and I was going to really love the art. I knew from following her Instagram and having viewed a lot of the images already. I'm not familiar with runes at all, which I mentioned in my walkthrough. And so when I have been using this deck, I have needed to use the guidebook. And that's one thing I would say about this deck, having worked with it now for a few weeks, is that the name of the rune and the image of the rune design and the painting are not enough for me to take a lot of meaning. I mean, I can infer some things from the art intuitively, but I have needed to use the guidebook with this deck. The thing that changed by sending it for review just gave me a sense of responsibility to actually do the review or do the walkthrough, do the unboxing, and to use the deck in a timely fashion so that I was able to share my thoughts about it. So that's what changed in terms of it being a deck I was sent for review, as opposed to a deck that I was given. I just had a sense of responsibility to actually do the review and do something with the deck. So I have found working with this deck has been, you know, it's a very slow process for me in terms of getting to know the actual runes and their meanings. My sense is that the runes have quite big meanings, sort of. I don't want to compare the two systems too much because I'm not expert in either by any means, but a little bit like working with Ogham. I also find Ogham to have very big, high level meanings. And I think a daily rune is maybe too frequent for a rune for me. I've been using them for Instagram readings, and that has been nice because it's, you know, those readings are not for me personally necessarily, although sometimes they are. But the rune meanings, I think, for my personal practice, I'd be more likely to pull a card from this rune deck for a month ahead, like one card for a big energy for the month ahead, or maybe pull in a card for a week ahead, to pull a rune for a week ahead. But a daily rune for my personal practice would be too many, I think. I have really enjoyed, for my Instagram readings, pairing the deck with the painted tarot. The art style is so similar because it's the same artist and the cards are the same size and the same cardstock and same font and everything. So they really go really nicely together. And it has been a nice exercise for me as a reader to read the meaning of the rune in the guidebook and then look at the two tarot cards that I've pulled with it and see the message that has developed. And what I found in a lot of the readings, if you follow me on Instagram, or if you don't, you can hop over and just have a wee look if you're interested. I found that there's often a tension between the two tarot cards and the rune in terms of the meaning. So that has been really interesting to work with. So the painted tarot was beautiful with the painted runes, unsurprisingly. And I also really enjoyed pairing the painted tarot with the fountain tarot. That's what I've been working with this week. And they're just because they're both fine art decks, that has been a nice pairing. You know, they've sort of visually been quite nice together. The other oracle deck that I got this month is the Transcendent Journeys Oracle by Cheryl Yambach Rose, and this is a Blue Angel deck, and I picked this up in a shop when I was on holidays in Westport. Just the usual story of me justifying buying myself something just because I'm in a shop. It's a very different deck to the kind of things I normally buy for myself. It was a bit of an impulse buy with the art on the cover being really, really attractive. And the thing that I've noticed with this deck is it's a very broad jumble of different subject matter. So we have, for example, Venus or Aphrodite, but then you have, sort of native peoples from various parts of the world. We also have kind of cosmic energy of like Lemurian and that sort of thing, Palladian, aliens, even King Arthur. There's Mary Magdalene, there's fairies, like there's selkies. There's a real jumble of things in this deck, which wouldn't be my usual style, but I really enjoy the painting style of this deck. She has included Bridget, which always attracts me. But there's a very broad selection of things in this deck. So it's one that I haven't fully decided, I think, if it's one that I'm going to be working with in the long term, but I'm very much enjoying looking at the art. And in my Instagram readings, I successfully coupled this deck with the Slow Tarot. And I found that the frames, I think, again, the fact that they're both painted decks was really nice. And I put 2 tarot cards and then the oracle card and put a combined message again for the 2. But I think it's the fact that they're both painted and they're both in frames. And the colour tones are maybe similar, kind of earthy colour tones. It just worked really well together as a deck combination. So that is one combination that I might work with again. I love the Slow Tarot, and it's one that I hadn't taken out in a while. So it was nice to use it. So 3 new decks into my collection this month. 2 oracles and a tarot. So just a few other bits and pieces. I've also been continuing to use the Mysteries of Mary tarot. I'll not go through very much with it this month. I'm still pulling a card from it, displaying it on my altar, reading the entry in the guidebook, and I'm not using it for any kind of divinatory readings. It's more for like a theme or an idea to reflect on in more of a sort of spiritual or reflective sense. So that's still being used. During my holiday, I actually stopped at Knock, which is a famous apparition site of Mary in Ireland, and I was able to pick up some holy water. Mary is known as the Golden Rose at Knock, so I picked up some holy water in this little bottle. And I also picked up there's so many Catholic shops. There's so many Catholic shops in Knock selling like gifts and items. It's probably a bit like Glastonbury shops, only it's all Catholic stuff. And I picked up this little statuette of Bridget in her guise as Saint Bridget. And that has been added to my altar because it's very unusual to get a statue of Bridget, actually. It's the first one I've seen, so I was delighted to get that. And I also picked up this little, it's quite small, statuette of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which my partner said was the most Catholic thing he'd ever seen. Because I had no images of Jesus, and growing up Catholic, his teachings and stories and parables and miracles and so on were a very big part of my spiritual grounding. And so it was nice to have an image of him to have somewhere in my house as well. And then a few other things just very quickly. I'm still studying Irish. I'm still Tammy Folum Gaeilge. I'm studying Irish. And I picked up this month this big lever arch binder of information called Gaelic or Irish for the Family, Gaeilge on Teaglach, and it includes lots of full colour pages of vocabulary with images and phrases that you can use around the house, like food and things like that, and bathroom and getting up in the morning and getting ready for bed and all that sort of thing. So I have actually put a lot of those A4 posters around my house, and I've been trying to use the target language with my daughter and helping her to learn some Irish, which has been really fun. And finally, some of the music I've been listening to when I was on holidays. We listened to quite a lot of Declan O'Rourke. Those are 2 of his albums, Magpie's Eye and Arrivals, which is his new album. Magpie's Eye is one of my favourites of his. We were listening to Fanny Walked the Earth again. I was listening to Alanis Morissette's Such Pretty Forks in the Road again, which is such a great album. Rising Appalachia, Leyline's got another play. The Greatest Showman, I love this. Some of you have maybe been so struggling through my sniffing over the last few months, as I have had really bad problems with nasal congestion for a long time. I got some good medical treatment this month, and I've been able to breathe better, and I've been able to sing better. And so the Greatest Showman CD got a spin, and I was singing Never Enough at the top of my lungs again. So that was great pleasure. And Joni Mitchell Blue, I was giving it a bit of a spin too. So the music, I've been really enjoying that again. And I also framed some of the little postcards that I'd got with Sophie Mackay Knight's rune deck, and I've put those up on the wall as well in my house. So that has been very nice too. And finally, my cup of tea here that you can see, it says Ismailum cup and tea, which means I like a cup of tea, which is true. So thank you so much for joining me again, or maybe for the first time, for my favourites. I'm very conscious that sometimes in these favourites videos and some of the videos that we make, there's been some chat recently about consumerism in the tarot world. And, my intention isn't really to just be a big long ad for all these products that I've been using. But, if you want to check out some of the books out of your local library, or you want to give some of the music a listen on Spotify, or you fancy, giving Irish a go, or looking into Irish culture and so on, those things don't have to cost you anything, and maybe it just gives you a bit more sense of who I am as one of the tarot tubers that you're hopefully watching, subscribe, to get a bit of a sense of where I'm coming from if I'm sharing a bit more than just a deck review in these favourites videos. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again back here soon, I hope.